dance out in the cold dark night. Screams echo loud, no wrong, no right. Rescue calls flash blood red sky. Spirits linger, waiting not to die. Ghosts on the line, they whisper and wail. Fingers reaching out, pale as they fail.
Hello, I'm SOS here on this podcast today, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about a serial killer from the 1900s you may never have heard about. This one is kind of wild. So his name was Billy Gohl, or Billy Gohl. Unsure how to pronounce it. The last name is Gohl. And he lived in Washington State. I believe that's where he grew up, but I'm not quite sure. He was German American. And at a young age, he decided to go to the Yukon to strike gold. As most men did in his age bracket, I think he was a teenager, young man, when he went up to the Yukon. He was looking for his, the pot of gold and strike it rich claim, but he didn't find it, as most men didn't when they went up there. So he's up in the Yukon for quite a while, and then he decides to come home to Washington State. It was in the Aberdeen area. And he comes home and he becomes a bartender. And it was at this point in Aberdeen that bodies started washing up on shore. Aberdeen is a shipping area, and there was a lot of ship traffic in and out of this area. The port was quite active. And so at first, a lot of people were thinking these bodies washing up on shore were, accidents, sailors who went overboard. They got hurt on port somehow, and their bodies went into the water. I don't know why anybody was thinking that that was the case, because had that been the case, people would have said, hey, man overboard, and been looking for them. But no, these bodies are washing up on shore. And one of the things that was evident on some of them was that they had been shot. So that's not a shipping accident. Some of these guys were shot. I mean, all of them were men. All of them were robbed. Pockets turned inside out. And that's not typical for just an accident. He is alleged to have burned down a saloon in Alaska. So Billy has a little bit of a history here. He's kind of a violent guy. And he got married at some point. I'm not sure if he got married in Alaska or he got married in Washington. Stories like this, when they're in the 1900, like 1900 to 1909, 1910, it's very hard to find information on these. Articles are few and far in between in the newspapers. But he claimed that his wife disappeared. And I don't know if he made her disappear or she disappeared, but she was gone. He did claim that she ran off with another man, but there's a lot of doubt that that's what really happened with his wife. And then after all of the investigation that we'll talk about goes on here, they find a skull close to his cabin in Aberdeen of a man that they believe his name is Red Miller. And he was said to have gone missing and nobody could ever find him. And they think that the skull is this man. So let's talk about Billy a little bit more here and his work. He was not only a bartender, but he also worked at the Sailors Union Building. The Sailors Union Building sat right on the water, and the sailors would go there before leaving on their ships. They would get their mail. They would put money that they had in their pocket before they went out to sea, like in a savings account. And this Union Building was very, very important to the sailors. And at one time, Billy actually got involved with a kind of militia group, that Union militia group, and they had gone out and rounded up all of the non-Union sailors at the time. And from what I've read, they were not treated very well once they were rounded up. They were pretty much forced to go in the Union or be beat to smithereens. So he had a really violent past, and people were aware of that. So these sailors would come in, and a lot of times Billy would be working at the Union Building alone. These sailors would come in to do, their business before they went out to sea or coming back from sea to pick up their mail. And he'd start chatting them up and he'd ask them, do you have any family here? Do you have any friends here? What he was trying to do was find out which one of these sailors wouldn't be missed. And police believe that's how he found his victims. So he had put a trap door. Now, I've read that there is a trap door. I'm not sure if that trap door was a trap door or if it was a method to put goods down into the basement, like to lower them. But anyway, these guys would end up falling through the trap door into the basement, and he would get down there, and if they hadn't been knocked out from falling, then allegedly, well, maybe not allegedly, he was, anyway, we'll talk about it. I'm getting ahead of myself here. He would shoot them and rob them. And since the building was right on the water, he would get their body in a rowboat at night, and it is said that he would row out and then just dump their bodies overboard and row back in, and, business done. And he's a little bit wealthier for the night because he's robbed them. He did this quite often until a man named Klingenberg saw Billy Gohl with a man named Charles Hatberg. So Klingenberg is the last person to see Billy and Charles together when Charles' body that is then washed up on shore, shot and robbed. And so he goes to the police and they put it all together that maybe this is what's happening. They started investigating. When they found the body of Hatberg, they kind of searched the area to see what else was around his body. And a little ways away, they found a .38 automatic. And the .38 was traced back to Billy Gohl. Now, I don't know how they would have traced it back to him. I don't know if they kept records back then. I'm a little fuzzy on that. How did they trace it back to Billy? But anyway, Billy did admit that the gun was his, and he said that he used it to shoot a cow. But police said that this gun was used to shoot Hatberg. So Billy was arrested. He was charged and convicted of Hatberg's murder. And at the time, police are starting to put together this puzzle of all of these bodies that have washed up on shore. They believe that he's suspected of killing 41 other men and robbing them. So he's put in prison for life. He died of syphilis in 1927. But as they did the investigation, they believe that he killed upwards of 100 people. And you got to wonder, a man like that doesn't just start killing. How many people do you think he killed in the Yukon? He wasn't above just killing people and robbing them. So if somebody maybe had found a few gold nuggets and they're, wagging their tongue at the local bar, I'm willing to bet that those guys were probably shot and robbed. And then why did he burn down the saloon? He was suspected of burning down that saloon. He probably did. This guy was not a good character. But there you go. Little known Billy Gohl in Washington, serial killer. So he killed between 1906 and 1909. One of our earliest serial killers, documented anyway. Not the only one, but one of the earliest one. Hope you like the story.